Hello and good day. My name is Harold Ian M. SIMAGALA from BSBA HRM 24D. Today's topic is about symptoms of groupthink and how to prevent it. What is groupthink? Groupthink is a mode of thinking in which individual members of small cohesive groups tend to accept a viewpoint or conclusion that represents a perceived group consensus, whether or not the group members believe it to be valid, correct, or optimal. There are several symptoms of groupthink according to Irving Janis. First one is an illusion of invulnerability. This reassures people about possible dangers and leads to over-optimism and failure to heed warnings of danger. While optimism is a good thing, over-optimism can lead to disaster. The next symptom is a belief in the inherent morality of the group. Because individual thinks that what they are doing is right, they tend to ignore the ethical or moral consequences of their decisions. Just because everyone has agreed to the decision does that mean it is ethically or morally right? The third symptom is stereotyped views of members of opposing groups. The group believes that those who disagree are opposed to the group on purpose. They view them as being incapable of taking the right decisions or as being weak and not intelligent. Next symptom is the direct pressure on dissenters. Other group members tend to put pressure on the one who is opposing their decisions. The application of pressure to members who express doubts about the group's shared illusions or questions the validity of arguments proposed. Next is the process of self-censorship. Members keep silent about their opposing views and downplay to themselves the value of their perspective. They believe that if they are the only one out, then they must be the one who is wrong. An illusion of anonymity. People assume that judgments expressed by members are shared by all. Silence from some is considered to be acceptance of majority's decisions. Groupthink can cause people to ignore important information and can ultimately lead to poor decisions. According to Irving Janis, it has led to some faulty decisions in the past, such as the preparation for the attack on Pearl Harbor. So how do we avoid groupthink? To avoid groupthink, it's important to have a process in place for checking the fundamental assumptions behind important decisions and for evaluating the risk involved. Janice has provided several suggestions for preventing groupthink that can be used as valuable guides in decision making and problem solving. Here are his several suggestions for preventing groupthink. The first one is to encourage. Leaders must encourage group members to address their concerns and objectives. By encouraging members, they will not feel fear and will be comfortable giving out their suggestions. Next is to engage in discussions. Before a group reaches its final decisions, the leader should encourage members to discuss their deliberations with trusted associates and then report that perspective back to the group. The next is ask for help. The group should invite outside experts to encourage them to challenge the group's viewpoints and positions. Do not be afraid to ask for help. Instead, ask for help for a professional because they can help you do well when making decisions. In addition to the previous suggestions, the other one suggestion is using conflict to improve decision making. The efficient use of conflict can be means of improving decision making. Although conflict can have adverse outcomes such as ill will, anger, tautness, and lowered motivation, both leaders and group members must strive to ensure that it is appropriately managed and used constructively. There are two types of using conflict to improve decision making. The first one is devil's advocacy, and the second one is dialectical inquiry. With the devil's advocacy, one of the group or individuals asks as a critic of the plan. The devil's advocate tries to come up with problems with the proposed alternative and suggested reasons why it should not be adopted. The next one is dialectical inquiry. Dialectical inquiry attempts to accomplish the goals of the devil's advocate in a more constructive manner. It is a technique whereby problem is approached from two alternative points of view. The devil's advocacy. The role of the devil's advocate is to create dissonance. This ensures that the group will take a hard look at its original proposal or alternative. By having a group or individual assigned to the role of devil's advocate, it becomes clear that such an adversarial stance is legitimatized. It brings out criticisms that might otherwise not be made. Criticisms that will help ensures that all proposal will have a solution to a certain problem. Although the devil's advocacy is useful, there can sometimes be potential problems using the devil's advocate approach. If one's views criticized continuously, one may become demoralized. Moreover, even if the devil's advocate successfully finds problems with the proposal course of action, there may be no new ideas or counterproposal to take its place. The next one is dialectical inquiry. The dialectical inquiry contains two alternative points of view. The idea is that to create a creative synthesis that can occur from either a critique of the opposite perspectives, a thesis, and an antithesis. Dialectical inquiry involves the following steps. First is to identify a proposal and the information that was used to derive it. Second, state the underlying assumptions of the proposal. Third, identify a counterplan or antithesis that is believed to be feasible, politically viable, and generally credible. However, it rests on assumptions that are opposite to the original proposal, which means it is just an alternative counterpart. Number four, engage in a debate in which individuals favoring each plan provide their argument and support. Debate is a very good thing because it enables critical thinking of the members. The last and final step is identify a synthesis that hopefully includes the best components of each alternative. In other terms, find a solution. However, there are still drawbacks in dialectical inquiry. The drawback is it is correlated with several potential downsides. It can take a considerable amount of time and require much training. It is it takes considerable amount of time because it has two subgroups, the thesis and the antithesis. Also, a sequence of compromises between the initial proposal and the counterplan may result. Here's the difference between the devil's advocacy and the dialectical inquiry. As you can see, the devil's advocate is very clear. Alternative one is the devil's advocate, which includes the critical thinking. Here's alternative number one, critique by the devil's advocate. Once the plan is critiqued by the devil's advocate, the group members will revise alternative in order to counterpart the problems. Here you can see the dialectical inquiry consists of two subgroups. The alternative number one, which is thesis, the alternative number two, which is the antithesis, which meets at the structural debate to hold a solution or a synthesis. But despite some limitations associated with this conflict-inducing decision-making techniques, they have many benefits. Both techniques force debate about underlying assumptions, data, and recommendations between subgroups. Such debates tend to prevent the uncritical acceptance of a plan that may seem to be satisfactory after a cursory analysis. This takes us back to one of the suggestions, which is encourage. So encourage your group members to free of their suggestions so they will feel comfortable. I'll also devise a plan that consists of debates because it involves critical thinking that can help in the synthesis of a problem. That is all for today. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.